Hello and welcome to today's live stream. I wanted to let you know about today's live stream. It's going to be what's going on right now and a ton of audio. So it's a really, really cool presentation, very hands-on as my friends Jen and Travis kind of talk through their sales process. If you could do me a favor and hello and welcome to today's live stream. If you could do me a favor, just let me know where you're joining from. Looks like we have a couple people joining us. First of all, thank you for joining us. If you're out there, let us know where you're joining from. It looks like we have Lake in the Hills, Illinois. We have Wadsworth. We have Elyria. Let us know where you're joining from. While we have a minute left, why not start a watch party on Facebook so you can let others know that you're watching this awesome broadcast. And while you're at it, just let us know where you're joining from in the comments below. And hello, and welcome to the live stream. I'm your host, TJ Houston. We are here at the Pixel Connection. I'm not in my normal home studio. I want to apologize that, we don't really have a studio space built here yet, but hopefully if we continue these on past the COVID-19, maybe we'll put something together in the store where I have a similar studio that I have at home. So I want to apologize to anybody that stayed on till the end yesterday. Towards the end with Tony, my audio and my video kind of got a little swirly. So this is a teachable moment for you guys. if you watch Monday's live stream, I was talking about the different gigahertz and things being on the same signal as Wi-Fi. Well, that's exactly what happened yesterday. So towards the end of the broadcast, my wife actually started the microwave to cook our lunch. She was making some potatoes, and she's like, "I turned it on 10 minutes ago," and that's when those issues started. So let that be a lesson for you guys, that those wireless signals and the things that you have in your household, those do mess with your stream. So just be cautious with that. So today we have a really unique presentation, and originally it was going to be like talk about their sales. Jen and Travis is who's joining us today, Jen and Travis Stitt. But we were going to talk about like their sales session, because a lot of times I hear, people say, I don't have a studio, so I can't do in-person sales. And that's just not true. Today, we are going to take you through Jen and Travis's sales, kind of their sales flow, and it's done through their home. So I love getting behind the scenes to see how other photographers do things and how they sell and how they set up their space. And that's what we're going to do today. So we currently have like 3 phones set up in order to do like a little bit of a multi-angle shot. So I would ask that you stick with us. I mean, we're doing this on mobile devices and, with wireless and all these things going on. So I do ask that you just stick with us. And this is just a teaser. So Jen and Travis are coming to our conference in August in order to share this full presentation as well as a couple other presentations. So this is just a kind of getting started kind of teaser, if you will. So if you do have questions about how they sell, about how they, different things about their business, they are an open book. They are some of the best, I would say at least top 5 wedding photographers in the Philadelphia market. I mean, they are top notch. They are really awesome people. So we're actually going to go through kind of as a client would come into their sales office, and then we're going to do like a end scene, and then we're going to talk about kind of what just happened. So we're actually going to get over to Jen. She is currently outside the home, so she's kind of walking in for the first time. So we'll go ahead and get her up on screen, make sure she is unmuted here, and we should, let me unmute. Oh, Jen, you muted yourself. So we just have to unmute, just hit unmute on your side. So as she's doing that, I wanted to let you know that any questions, oh, there we go. She just jumped in. Any questions that you have, please add them to the comments and we will get those answered for you. So we're jumping over to Jen as she is coming into the house.
All right, so I'm Jen. We wanted to show you guys what happens when our clients arrive to our studio.
So as we're walking here, so we hear the dogs barking. So
Here, Doc, come. Hey, welcome in. Welcome to our studio. This is Doc, and this is Marty. Be careful. Marty's like a frat boy. He likes to open mouth kiss you, so be careful.
Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
Absolutely. I'm Travis, by the way.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you. Jen's just upstairs. She's just finishing a little work. She'll be right down. She's far cooler than I am, and then we'll get everything started. Please come in, take a look around, take a seat. I got an album on the table for you to dig into. I'm going to throw the boys outside. Come on, boys. Let's go. Come on, guys. Come on, outside. Outside. Awesome. Did you find the place okay? No problems getting here?
Oh my gosh, yes, your neighborhood is so cute.
Awesome. Please come take a seat. Relax. Awesome. So when I talked to you before we got started here, you mentioned that you love rosés. So this is actually a local grown one here, which is really nice, right in Bucks County. Can I pour you a glass? That'd be wonderful, right? Let's get started. So how's all the wedding planning going so far?
Oh, it's going great, actually. We're ready to book our photographer, so we've been looking at a couple.
Phenomenal. That sounds great. Awesome. And scene.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about, so we walked in the house and normally people would be like freaking out. They would have their dogs put away, but that's not what you guys have. That's not what we're doing.
Correct. Correct. It's actually part of a pretty well thought out plan. So one of the things that we like to do is we kind of call it shock and awe. is one of the keys to any sales session is making sure that you can control that sales session. So often what happens is as clients are coming in to either book us for a wedding, or they're looking to do some portrait sessions or just buy materials, they're kind of coming in with some preconceived notions. They're focusing on all their questions, they're focusing on money, they're focusing on everything else. So what we like to do, dogs that run up to them, they're cuddling them, they come in, the walls are actually loaded and covered in different kinds of photos, and it's a sensory overload. And what that sensory overload allows me to then do, and Jen to do, is we get to reset it. And by being able to reset it, they come, they sit, it becomes a calming moment at that point. We can actually control that sales session from day one. And this is highly effective. If some of your clientele base might bring a parent with them, this really helps because you can take multiple people and then you control that sales session.
Absolutely. And I noticed, so you had said, I noticed that you had said about a rosé. So was that pre-planned? Like, when do you get that information from that client?
Absolutely. Great question. So what we like to do is we like to make sure that we go through a pre-phase with all of our clients. They understand what our base introduction numbers are. They understand what our style is. We're kind of making sure that they're fitting our mold before they get to this actual space. I would say by the time they get here, we have like a 95% closure rate. They like Disney, they like all these different things. Is a key element of sales is what I'm trying to understand is what their key points are. What are their problems? What are their issues? They present a problem, we present an answer, that's a sale.
Okay, so now you had mentioned, now we have taste. You had mentioned visual, just the overload with the art on the wall, but you also said smell.
Yes, absolutely. Experience right now is we actually have we'd have a playlist going, and that playlist would be based off of what we think that the customer might be interested in. So if they're more laid back, we pull in the Michael Bublé, a little bit of different pieces that we use, and that's the audio experience. From the smell, what we do is we make sure that we schedule everything where there's no cooking in the house, there's no food smell whatsoever, and then we'll light some candles of fairly neutral tones, but those tones will also remind them of a different time. So smell is actually one of the brain's key indicators of memory. So we'll use things like cookies. We'll use things like pine trees. We'll use things where they're going to try to remember. Please, dogs, right? If you can hear them barking. We're going to create things that remind them of memories of really, really good times. So when they're going through this whole sales session, all they're feeling is relaxed and continuing to go back to a really, really good space.
Now, recently you guys rebranded. Well, it's been a couple years now. And now when you look at your site, there is a lot of dogs and animals. And then when they come in, we see Doc and Marty. If you follow you guys on social media, there's a ton of Doc and Marty. So give us a little bit about that. Like, how did that become part of your brand? Because, that's something that for your presentation in the summer, we're going to talk a little bit about branding and stuff. So tell us about the dogs. Like, how did that become something you guys keyed on?
Great question. So what we did was, as part of our rebrand, and Jen, you can talk this too, is we did over 200 weddings. We've shot more than that in portrait sessions. And what we started to do was use all the data that we had collected about our clients and the imagery that we took and started to mine it. And what we started to notice is that our core clientele basically fell into the following likes. This is what they liked. They liked dogs, they liked Disney, and they liked basically breweries and wineries. Those were the areas that they were interested in.
And they were young working professionals, both people in the couple.
Absolutely, which also then set them into a socioeconomic range of where, as working professionals, we kind of had some base understanding of their income and then kind of where they were living, were they going to buy a house, were they going to start a family, we could understand those. So we said, okay, now that we know all that data, let's make sure, and these are the clients we like, right? So it's fun to do this work, is then we said, let's brand towards it. So yes, all of our marketing materials, a lot of them have dogs. We do a big bridal show in Philadelphia. It's one of the largest in Philadelphia. The whole background is nothing but brides and dogs, right? So we're literally taking our clientele and instead of kind of shotgunning on marketing, we aim it directly at them. With that being said, when you come into the space, you notice on the walls, you don't get a lot of that because what we want to make sure is that we don't become off very one-sided. So we've already hooked them with the marketing saying, hey, we're going to connect, we're going to do dog engagement sessions, it's going to be fun. But This is timeless imagery that you want on your walls for the next 30 to 40 years. I'm gonna have a drink.
Excellent. Yeah. So that's such a key takeaway, you guys. One of the things, if you've watched our any of our other guests that have talked about a little bit more of the business side, is finding that niche. And then we also recently launched a podcast. So, and we did a whole episode on that niche where, you know, instead of going that mile wide, you want to go a mile deep. And that's exactly what they've done. Do a Google search for Fox and Brazen, check out their website. You're going to see, you're going to feel exactly the type of client that they are trying to attract. And I can speak from experience, you know, I know what kind of bride and grooms I love to work with. You know, I have a profile of the, you know, of all the weddings that I've done, the ones that have been the most successful. So that's why when I had a link or a lead come in, I would tell them, like, yes, I know you want pricing, but we have to sit down. You know, I want to get to know you guys. You know, this is the ballpark price. But I tell them, like, this is the most important day of your life. I have to make sure that I'm a good fit for you and that you're a good fit for me. And when I started telling clients that, they kind of stepped back and they're like, wow, other photographers just sent me an email that said how cheap they were or how they're the best ever. You want to get to know me. And that's exactly what we have here. So they've identified their perfect client. So if they could have that client come through the door every day, they've identified that. And now they're getting them to a place where, you know, they're not on ed, like the customer is not, it's not a them against each other. It's not that type of transaction. This right now, we're in a space right now that is very welcoming. It smells good. We had adorable puppies. I mean, I don't know what else, and we have wine. So I don't know what else could be a more welcoming environment. So is there anything else that we need to cover in this space before we check out the next one?
Just one quick thing. Well, actually,
yeah,
two quick things because I can never do anything quick. Two things I want to call out is notice the color of the walls. Not a mistake. They're actually, it's called sparrow gray, or it's close to 18% gray that we could find. Our imagery, our brand is very bold. It's bright imagery. It's as if you were in that location. It's what your mind remembers. And we wanted to make sure was that the imagery was bouncing off the walls. So as you come in, your eye almost just misses the wall and goes right to the imagery. On the flip side, you can do this in any studio or home sales space as well, which is maybe what your branding is you do baby photography, newborn photography, and you take very bright, white, clean, crisp images. Well, your walls should be a dark color that offsets that, so your eye is driven to the imagery. So as we were designing this space, it was designed to make sure that it was absolutely highlighting the imagery to the degree when you walk in, there's a very large television and it's the first thing you see. Now, normally this will actually scroll through images. And what it also allows is you're sitting on a couch, sometimes becomes very uncomfortable where they don't want to make eye contact with you. So now they have something that they can look at. They can stay visually stimulated. We can use that as a discussion point, but at the same time, it makes it feel like they don't have to actually look at us, which is okay, because that's helping again make them feel more comfortable. Yeah, then what we do, last quick point, is that this imagery is actually related back to the customer. So what we like to do is if they're having a wedding that is downtown Philadelphia, you're going to see a lot of downtown Philadelphia photos. If we know their venue is going to be more off in the country and it's going to be this really cool barn, rustic chic, right? We know at that point, we're going to kind of lead that imagery in that direction. So when they come in, they're naturally feeling that what we deliver is what they're looking for. I think that's the big call outs in this space. Jen?
The other thing that I should mention is our clients know we have dogs. So as they're approaching the house, I've already emailed them and told them that we have dogs in here. If they email me and let me know that they don't like dogs or they're uncomfortable with it, we have arrangements where we can put our dogs in their crates. We can put them out back or we can take them to my mother-in-law's house. So they're not here. I would never want to surprise anybody with a dog or a situation that may be too overwhelming for them. But we've already told our clients where to park, the dogs are going to be here, and it's going to be a long meeting.
Correct. So this space that we talk about in here, this conversation, get to know you, understand you, can range from 15 minutes to about an hour, generally speaking, on the client.
So I noticed that on the coffee table there, you have an album. So I assume you sell albums?
Yes. So albums are definitely a core of what we sell. It's in every collection. Personally, we think they're very important. They're your first family heirloom. Not to get too cheesy with it, you don't buy it for yourself, you buy it for your kids and grandkids. We can kind of go down that road, but it's important to us. So to your point, TJ, is we introduce the concept of an album, a nice, big, beautiful album, as soon as they come in. So what we often do is if we're letting the dogs out, we're talking, we're getting things situated in the kitchen. What we're doing is we're purposely giving them time to get bored. They'll act, they can get used to the area. And by doing that, they're going to open that book. And that's going to start a conversation, right? So we're introducing, as soon as they come in, the products we want to sell. I want to sell albums and I want to sell big wall art.
But I'd also like to call out that we typically don't look at albums in this space.
Correct.
This is our hangout space. This is our get to know you space. It's kind of like a first date in
Yes.
a way, where we're sitting here, we're asking them more questions about them, how they met, what they do for fun. Essentially, we're trying to talk about anything besides the wedding. We will get wedding questions in here, and if the conversation is a little forced, we turn over and we talk about their bridal party and what they're looking forward to. We talk about honeymoons a lot, actually. If the client has questions about their wedding photography and they won't let it go in this space, we will answer them, but we do try to drive the conversation in other directions.
The king of mute is muted. So, and then I couldn't help but notice you said, all large portraits. I don't see anything smaller than 16 by 20 in this space.
That's correct.
Those are 20 by 20?
Yeah, these are about 20 by 20s, or even 14 or 16s. But yes, to your point, TJ, we really only, the smallest thing you'll see, and as we move into the sales space, the smallest thing we have is a 16 by 20, which I think, unless you have any more questions, I think this might actually be the perfect leeway into how we move into that sales space.
Cool, let's do it.
Cool. So why don't you grab a camera here?
Yeah, let me move. Which one do you want?
Let's grab that one. So one of the key parts of this, right, is think about some of the other sales sessions you've had when it comes to something very, very expensive. So it could be a piece of jewelry. It could be a car. It could be a home. Homes are cheating, but cars and jewelry is a good example of it. One of the tactics they use in sales is movement. When you move, it allows the time for your brain to reset. It allows it to process information. So what you'll often see is in cars, you go to the lot, then you come into the sales desk, you then go over to the manager's desk. There's all this movement, and it's helping keep it engaged. And what it also does is it sets a tonality. So the tonality here is one that's very inviting, very laid back. But what we're about to do, we're going to move to a space that was designed particularly for sales. And as part of that, what we do is we kind of funnel our client through an area where we're going to send some subliminal suggestions and subliminal moments to get them going. So the most important part is make sure that everyone has their beverage before they go.
Hashtag day drinking. Love it.
Is there any other way, TJ? Awesome. So if you can cut to, there we are, cut to Jen's camera. Phenomenal. Jen's going to stand up and she's going to come this way. So instead of kind of role playing, I'll just talk you through it. So what we do is we bring the client through this area here. And you're going to notice two very important things. The first one is this wall. This is actually our families, we call them the over the mantle shot, but the very classic altar shot of their wedding, of all the family members we could find. As they come through here, they see this, they see the old photos, they see the dogs. What this is sending, and I'll take a minute to explain what it is imagery is important to us. So if imagery is important to us, it should be important to them enough that I build a whole wall, and Jen built a whole wall actually, demonstrating the importance of photography. So we're now sending that signal that photography is important and print is important. We're building into that. As they come through, then on your right, my left, we then, all of our WPPI print competition awards, we have hanging on our wall. Now, what does this do? Part of sales is you always want to establish that you're a trusted advisor. You always want to establish that you're a professional in your field and you know what you're doing. We help demonstrate that through awards. You don't need awards to do this at all. The way that you do that is through consistency of branding. You do that through the way that you deliver the message and the way that you bring things together. That establishes that threshold. We just like print competitions, so it helps get there. Now, here's the funny part, and Jen told me to make sure I mention this, is our clients have no idea what this is. nor do they care 99% of the time. It allows me to explain it to them. And again, by explaining it, it gives me an opportunity to make sure that we're establishing that we are a trusted advisor and that we are professionals and we can deliver exactly what they need. And they head into this space. And what we do is we actually invite them to come sit on these two chairs right here. And what that allows you to do is it lines up a perfect view of the television. And then this space is completely constructed for sales and business. There's basically a conference table. There's a projection. There's a television right at the end. And at this point, when they come in, there's little portfolios with all our pricing materials. There's books. At this point, your mind has already made the switch. This is sales time. They're going to come in here. They're going to spend money. They've already mentally switched over to now we're in that phase of let's make it done.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit more. So, and you might be doing this. So can you show us the portfolios? So it's currently sitting here. And what are these portfolios? So
Yeah, absolutely. So Jen's going to go to their phone so we can hear you a little bit. But there's literally portfolios, as if you were an executive at a meeting. You're walking in, you're the CEO of a company. It's beautiful suede and leather. And this is the materials that we actually hand out at all of our bridal shows, right? So when they leave, they're going to leave with something in their hand besides a contract, which is what we're aiming for here, right? But what they're going to get is they're going to have beautiful pictures and things in their hands that they get to review back on. They get to show their friends about as they come in. And also notice 6 chairs, only 2 portfolios. We're telling them subconsciously where they need to sit at this point.
I love it. So now we're in this room. As we look around, this is where you're kind of showing. So if they have a question about something that's in that brochure, chances are it's in this room, correct?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So again, I'll take a quick tour here, trust area from the window, right? More images on the walls. Now, this imagery was chosen for a particular point. It's a varying set of sizes. It shows collages, and this is what we're looking to sell. So we have metals, we have off-size metals, 15 by 30s. And then the other thing is, if you allow me, is 2-story ceiling. So what we did is in the Philadelphia area, in the suburbs, where we spend a lot of time photographing, a lot of the homes have 2-story ceilings. And as you get into those homes, wave hi, Jen, to the camera. As you get into those homes, you want to make sure that if a photo goes up very, very high, that photo needs to be big, like a 30 by 40, which doesn't look very big in this room, but that's a 30 by 40. Wow. So as we're trying to make sure we do sales, it's to fill that space that they have, and there's a cost associated with it. That's all part of the sales.
And I love how you've studied your demographics so much. You've been in the houses, and this is information that I never really even thought of until this moment. Is I have the opportunity a lot of times where I'm in the room where they're getting ready, so, and it's a lot of times it's at the house. So why am I not thinking about, looking at the houses and then setting up my sales space for that? That is a huge takeaway. And I love that we have so far, just to recap for everybody, we were in a very casual room. We were hanging out. We were getting to know each other. It was our first date. And then we kind of went through and showed off some awards. We showed that we were a subject matter expert. And then we went into our spot here where this is the business room. So we're training that client to do business, that they are going to spend money in this room. So I unmuted that mic I muted your mic just so there wasn't echo, but this is just an awesome, just how we're taking this through. There are so many good sales points in here, whether you're selling at your home or your studio, talking about the movement, talking about appealing to those clients. You should be taking so many notes. I know I have, just for my own business. So I'm going to unmute them and let's get back to it.
Sure. If you cut to, which camera am I? On this one, which will work out well. This will work out fine. Multi-camera setups. Couple things I want to call out. The table, as goofy as it sounds, this table is actually custom built. We worked with some craftsmen out in Lancaster, which is a big craft area near us. And actually, TJ, can you swap to the other camera on the other side so we're not shooting into the window? Perfect. There we go on that one, right? And what's interesting about this table, as you notice, is the height of it is actually about my waist. The average height table is 36 inches. This table is actually somewhere around 39 to 40 inches, almost bar height. The chairs, are then raised to actually match the table. Why is the table important? I don't understand, right? Here's why. And you'll notice this the next time you go to a restaurant or in your sales session is there's a principle that basically says the closer I get to you, and if I'm above you and I'm trying to sell to you, I'm now looming down over top of you, and she now feels very attacked. And that's not the goal. We spend all our sales sessions standing. So by her sitting there and me moving away, we're now almost at direct eye line. So I'm creating an environment, we're creating an environment where they feel comfortable because we're now at the same exact height. So as we talk about albums and we're moving through the products, they don't feel that I'm looming above them, putting them in a position where they're now on the defensive, because I don't want them to feel that way whatsoever. So every single element in a room in your sales, as you start to go through it, start to think about it. An example of this from history is Jimmy Carter on Air Force One installed a chair that would go up higher than the table because he wanted to be above everybody and feel more powerful. So these things are everywhere throughout history. We're just making sure that we bring it into as simple as a sales space. So TJ, I just wanted to call it the table because I think that's a key element that when you start to move on to album sales, you start to move on to print sales, you start to move on these other pieces, this becomes the key area where you're now working, you're now sharing across, and sometimes can be very valuable.
That is awesome. And then when they come back, so let's say they come back for a couple session or a family session, in the future, do you use this same kind of technique or this same kind of walkthrough when those clients come back? And do you use it for, let's say a family client comes in, do you follow the same thing as your bride and grooms?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It 100% ties over. There are some small differences, but the flow is still the same. We know our clients pretty personally. You spend a day with them. Even if you're shooting, you spend 2 hours with the family. You can really get to know somebody. So it's the same thing. They come in through the door, they sit down. It might not be for an hour. It could be for 5 minutes just to have a light refreshment, but just to get to break down those barriers, get them comfortable. And then the key point is by doing that, we're setting up for as they move into the sales space, again, they're triggering that moment in their mind. We're triggering that subliminal message that says, we're about to go from get to know you into sales. So they come back again through that little entranceway into the space. This is the sacred sales holy ground, right? But what it also allows is sales is sometimes viewed as a dirty word. I don't like to make sales. It's so hard. It's so dirty. I feel like a fraud or a con. By bringing them in here, what you've created is you've gotten rid of that. That expectation for sales is about to happen. So when you can look at them and say, hey, my 30 by 40 is, $1,400, $1,800, and you just look at them, you don't have to back down. You're in your space, this is what it is, and there's an expectation on their end that you're in a sales space at that point. Makes things a lot easier.
So a question that I had, like, how do you transition them from one room to another? Like, how do you go from, hey girl, how are you, to, hey, let's go to the bedroom, for lack of a better term? I mean, that's, that's what we're doing. We're going from the date to the sales. So how do you transition that?
No, that's a great way of putting it. It's kind of funny you put it that way because I had the pleasure that I used to do sales with for the federal government. Used to do big contract sales, things like that. And basically one of the first trials you did is you basically, it was like dating somebody. You had to pick them up at the bar, right? So it very much is that way. So how closure is closure, no matter how you want to describe it, right? There's a couple things. The first thing is we're going to look for them to naturally create a window to bring them over. Okay. And there's a key phrase that we will use, and I'll tell you in a second. But what we're looking for is we're looking for a gap. If we force them to the sales too early, they don't feel comfortable enough. They're going to feel hesitant when they get in here. If we wait too long, they're now bored and this becomes a sales session. So there's a fulcrum, there's a little window, an envelope that you need to strike at. And normally you'll feel it. And where it is there's an awkward pause after a giggle. And what you then say is, hey, why don't we go look at some albums and let's talk over some pricing material? That's the key. Let's look at some albums and talk over some pricing material. I didn't say collections. I didn't say cost. I didn't say anything. I said some pricing material. But the important part was the albums. So that link is when they're talking about weddings that they like, weddings they don't like, what they're expecting in their day, I'm going to show you an album that is going to align with their day And that's why I pull them over. So I look for that opportunity to say, when can I show them an album that's going to bring them into this space and they're going to feel comfortable? With that, when they come over, we treat our albums like they're gold. They're not allowed to touch them. They can look at them, right? Now, an important part of sales is touch. However, what I want to do is I want to create value with it. So what we do is if they come over, the suede one's a great one. They come over, we'll collect the portfolios to create space. As I'm talking about this wedding, I pull it out of the box nice and slow, right? I open up in front of them. I say, this is actually shot on their wedding day. They incorporated their dog. Notice how the cover, it's beautiful. It's absolutely oak. I love it brought together. Everything is customized. We have our symbols all over it. And now I'm talking them through the day. I'm talking them through the session. They're not touching the book yet. Because as I'm going through it, I'm putting the value on it and handling it as if it's glass. I'm showing them how valuable this is to us and to me and to the client, right? That's the first book. Now that we've gone through the first book, right? Now I say, hey, yes, but they're beautiful crafted books, lifetime warranties. They're heavy, touch it, feel it. Feel how heavy that book is. I think like a weapon, you put it by your front door, somebody breaks in, you smack them with your book, right? Now they've touched it. And not to stereotype, this one, not to stereotype, but generally speaking with people and women, I married one, if they touch it, they want to buy it. That's the way it works. So what we try to do is I'm now creating a sense of value by not letting them touch it and telling the story. But then as soon as they touch it, oh, it's heavy. Oh my gosh, the quality is amazing. Now you've created it in, and now you've got that hook at that point. So that was a lot more than you asked, TJ, but it just kind of
that's
went,
perfect.
you know?
So now, two things. Number one, do you wear gloves when you do it? Do you go that far, like the white gloves?
I don't, and I don't because what we believe in a sales session is sales sessions, there's different styles, right? And it gets a little complicated with the styles. But what I don't want it to be is I don't want it to be forced. I don't want it to feel fraudulent. I don't want it to feel theatrical, right? So we definitely went a little theatrics on this to kind of demonstrate was this an educational thing. But I don't ever want them to feel, wow, that was like really ingenuine. That was really fake. It was a lot of theatrics. So we don't do white gloves. We don't do things like that because we want to make sure that it is rooted in a sense of reality, because that reality is going to, again, help us instead of hinder us. So, but it depends on your brand. I mean, I'll totally put that out there. If your brand is, you know, the whole thing is covered in Swarovski crystals, it's you know, fine leathers beyond you've ever heard of, it's Ross Coach leather glove, you know, all this stuff. If that's your brand, then yeah, a white glove, that's not making it theatrical, that's aligning with your brand. Our brand is a it's based more in reality with the concept that yes, these things are going to last a lifetime. So if I put gloves on, I think it might tip it a little bit to theatrics.
Okay. And then the book that you have specific there, is this your top end album, medium, like is there thought into the album that's there, or is it more about like their wedding day? Are you going to show a wedding that's more like theirs, which is, you know, shabby chic or rustic or, you know, downtown Philly, modern? Like what goes into that?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So what we do is we only show top end line albums. We really don't show our other lines. What we do is when we show them and they're talking about something in their collection that isn't this, we're talking about here's what it is, but you're going to take away these items. What's important in that sale, showing you is what you want. Now, everything else, which by the way, the quality is ridiculous, but just as we're talking about it doesn't include it, it's creating a sense that it's lesser somehow, which is not bad. You're not degrading your item, you're not bringing it down, but you're making it seem not as worthy. Plus, they always want to touch it, right? That's the key. So the albums that we show from a line and sales perspective are always the top of the line. Double down on that, they always include more pages than what's included in the album.
In the collection.
In the collection, pardon me, thank you. What's included in the collection is we want to make sure that our post sales include album pages. So we're always showing them bigger, better, more. To your second part of that question, yes, the albums that we show to start with do align most directly to the wedding that they're most likely going to have. So
before a client comes in, we know their venue, we know the ceremony venue, the reception venue. We just spent 15 minutes to 45 minutes talking about their day and everything that's going to happen. So as Travis is kind of finishing that conversation, sometimes I'll come over to this room and I'll put the first book on the table that I feel like best aligns with the conversation we just had.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we don't do is it's okay to show albums outside of their wedding style. So we do show probably about the same like 5 books. One of them is a very sophisticated downtown wedding. One of them is a very nice country chic wedding. It's a military wedding, so there's uniforms involved. He changed things. He was super romantic. So it aligned to our brand. So even if that client isn't having a country chic wedding, they're going to be able to relate to it just because of this. In this part of the whole process, they're still in the start of designing what they want for their wedding. They don't know yet. They'll often look at us and be like, hey, can you show options where you're able, again, trusted advisor, and you're walking them through it and showing them what the images look like and how their schedule affects each of those images, and working it and able to handle their questions.
And that's why it's also really important for the first album that we show, we control the speed that the pages are turned. We're typically telling the story of the couple of the day that relate to the album there. When we bring out a second and third or fourth album, typically we only look at 2, but if the client wants to keep looking at albums, we will. We let them flip through at their pace. But the first album, we really treat it with a very slow pace, a storytelling pace to really set expectations.
Excellent. So they've gone through, they've looked at, albums. Now the TV that's over on the wall, is that showing something at this point, or are you going to now present collections? Like, what's the next step?
Correct. So if you flick to the other camera, the one that my back is turned to, perfect, perfect. The client is sitting over there. Jen will have the remote, or I'll have the remote kind of right over here. And we have up on our screen, what we'll have here is we'll have our collections materials. Now, what's key and important about this is the same PDF which I've already sent to them. Rule number 1, one of the top 5 rules of sales is surprises, bad surprises, kill sales. So meaning if I'm about to show them something that's different than they've already viewed in a bad way, meaning the price has gone up, they don't get as much, right? Something like that, we're creating a negative connotation right off the bat. So I literally start saying, hey, I believe we emailed over our collection materials. Did you get a chance to review it?
And he always says he believes he did it. We know we did it.
Yes, right. I'm not going to tell them you should have reviewed it by now. I'm going to present it in a way where if anyone's at fault, it's me. Okay. So also, TJ, a heads up, I just got the low battery on the headset. So if I bomb out, just let me know. All right.
I will. Yep.
So at that point, what we're saying is, I believe we sent it over. Now, I'm going to key off of their response. If they come back and they're like, I read every page, I reviewed it, I have it memorized, I'm going to enter this a little bit differently. If they come back and they're like, I didn't even open it.
Oh, I think you sent something. Yeah, you sent something.
Not as good, but that's okay. It gives me opportunity. Then there's the split. If she's like, I've memorized every other word, and he goes, you emailed something, now I have to split the difference and make sure that I don't bore her, but at the same time, I have to make sure that he realizes that he's about to make an investment. So based off their responses, I know how to move forward. I will always preface everything like this. What I'm going to show you is the fire hose of information. This is going to be tons of stuff, but I think it's important because what I want you to understand is our collections reflect what's important to us and how everything you just saw relates to what you get after your wedding. I'm literally telling them exactly how this is about to go forward. No surprises, no questions whatsoever. Rule number 1 of sales, practice, practice, practice. So we've done this with each other. I've sat my mom at the end of the table. She's given us feedback. Her mom's looked at this. Friends that we've had, we've literally gone over this where we have key set phrases to drive responses. At that point, depending upon that response, that is when we start moving through. And since it's the same PDF, I might skip past a couple pages to drive towards where I'm trying to get from the collection perspective.
So now you said it's the same PDF. Are you just presenting like on the Mac through a PDF, or did you export this as JPEGs? I know this is a small thing, but like technology wise, how are you doing this?
Go for it, Jen.
So this is actually JPEGs, and we're using our Apple TV with Lightroom hooked up to it. So this is just a slideshow that we put together and uploaded to, I don't know if you can, I mean, this TV's pretty big, I don't know if you can see it. it's just all in here in JPEGs from Lightroom.
Yep. So a lot of people don't realize that, but there is an Apple TV app for Lightroom where you can have all this stuff preloaded in, and they're just going it. But I'm going to assume that you have different galleries in there that you've created in Creative Cloud that are based on the different styles of the weddings, the shabby chic, the, all those different ones. I'm assuming that you have different ones in there, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We shoot a pretty decent number of Indian weddings, for example. So we have galleries set up for Indian weddings and multi-day events. You're absolutely correct. We have those in the gallery. The other part about this, which is beautiful, is my other job is I'm a director at an IT company, is what's important is, I tell Jen, is if we do something more than once, we've messed up. So in other words, with Lightroom on this application, one change, it's now on the iPad as well. So as we're moving around, she can put in a little bit of work with a huge value and reward. And that is really the value of cloud technologies through Adobe and through these various pieces. So I'm not trying to sell Adobe or anything like that. But what I'm trying to do is make sure that as you're thinking about as a company, as an enterprise, right? How do I use a tech subscriptions in order to get big value and reward? And I think using the cloud and just various little readers and devices around your house is a great way to do that.
So I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to stop the listeners because I want you to let that sink in. How many times have you been somewhere and they say, hey, oh, you're a photographer? Oh, can you send me something? Or do you have any examples? Or do you have, and you're like, oh yeah, in my Google Drive, I might have something, or I might have something in my car. Or, oh, I don't even have business cards. Now with Creative Cloud, you can just go through and boop, 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 and see everything that you have in there. You can have it for your portrait line, your headshot line, your wedding line. You can just have those little galleries in there. And like they said, you're already creating this. So why not just export it as a JPEG and throw it in there? So now it's on your Apple TV for presentation. It's on your phone. It can be web-based as well. Those albums or those galleries that you create in Lightroom, you can just right-click and you can get a link to that directly. So, you can do so much with the tools that you already have, and chances are you're working too hard. So one of the things that I do in my workflow class is when I've actually consulted with business to kind of step out and see what their workflows are. I just have them take Post-it notes and put them on the table for each step. And then we look how we can, make it cleaner, make it easier. This is a brilliant tip to do that, to use Adobe Lightroom in order to have your sales stuff, have it all in one place. That is your single source of truth for all of your marketing materials, your slideshows, all of that built in. So this, for nothing, I mean, if you got nothing else from this whole presentation, that right there is an amazing takeaway. Like I have chills. Obviously, I'm an IT guy. Like that's what my previous career was. So I'm like jonesing that I don't have this set up, and I'm kind of mad that I don't have it set up. But this is absolutely pure genius. Thank you. Back to you guys.
No problem. And in your IT background, just you going into like the Post-it notes for agile process development and Six Sigma process review of Post-it notes, I'm
100%.
like nearly turned on right now. So thank you, TJ. That made my day. That's for sure.
Okay. So
Quick
you're
call
going.
I want to
You're
do,
doing
right?
this,
That Jen reminded me of is this is a massive television. This is 65-inch. Now, you know what the beautiful thing is? Sam's Club, you can buy one of these for like $400. They're not crazy. Now, why does this feel disproportionate in the space? It's on purpose. What we were noticing we had clients was people were squinting at the back of the table, and we realized that that was an issue. So we got a huge television and everything is bigger, right? And then what's also kind of nice is to go on to just not, I want to book a wedding sale, but when you get into album design, when you get into prints, when you get into what needs to go on a wall, we can actually bring up on this pretty much anything in real size. So Jen will actually bring up a 16:20 real size on the television. And I put a tape measure across and say, this is 16:20. This is what it looks like, right? So what you're doing is you're creating, again, a level of comfort, but you're giving yourself a tool which you can then use across all your sales sessions. And it's very powerful. I think one of the most powerful examples we use is there's two. A, she'll put the album in real size up on the television and hold an album up next to it. And the client will come up and look at it. And they can feel how big the images are. And then the second part about it is if we do collage sales on a wall, which strong call out to EnView, by the way. If you're doing sales remote, you're doing collages, you're doing any kind of that sales, look into EnView. It's a whole new level with them. So definitely take a look at that. It's bigger. It makes them feel like they're in that space, which is important because most people as creatives We take for granted our ability to visualize and put things in spaces. Jen is ridiculous at this. She'll look at something and like a bookcase, she'll be like, won't fit. I have a measurer, I'm taping everything, I'm testing everything. Creatives can do that. Keep in mind, your audience, who you're selling to, isn't going to be able to just visualize things in their minds. Big spaces, actual sized items are going to help them get there.
Excellent. So we're going through, you've done your presentation here. So now, is it at this point, a couple questions. Number one, you've already pre-qualified them that they are going to spend a certain amount because you sent them this. So now that you've gone through and presented, how do you get to the, signing on the dotted line? Like, what's the next step after your presentation?
Yes. Always be closing, right? The 3 rules of sales.
I want the steak knives.
Say that one more time for me, TJ.
I said, I want the steak knives. I want the good leads. Such a great movie too. If you haven't seen it, the Glenn Ross file, you gotta look that up for sales. Absolutely. Coffee is for closing.
The ABCs of sales, always be closing, right? So that's actually a very good question. So the interesting thing is the closure concept is I would say argumentatively one of the most controversial things of sales, especially I would say even in the photo world, because there's different techniques and different teachers have different techniques. I'm going to answer this. Complex questions have complex answers. So I'm going to answer it like this. Understanding the regional demographics of your area and how they do business, I think, is important. So, okay, so I will answer your question, I promise. In our area, there's a very large Dutch, very large Italian influence in our area. And generally speaking, those clients will not book on the spot. They just don't. The way they do things, they take all the information, they go home, and they'll call us or email us.
But they've already made their decision. They made their decision here.
Correct. So what we do is I present it and I give them an option that they can go through. So I talk about payment plans, I talk about next steps, I go through all of that, right? And then what you do is, and here's the critical junction, you look at them and you go, basically something along the lines of, first off, is this what you're looking for or interested in? Now that gives them a gauge question. If they literally come back, and it has happened once or twice, and they say no, you go, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you guys coming out. You know what I mean? There's a really good movie tavern up the road and a great ice cream place. I really appreciate your time. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know, right? You're going to end it because you're just going to waste everyone's time. If they come back and they're hesitant, which most of them are, but they don't know what to do, because I just put them in an awkward situation where I'm basically asking them yes or no. I break the tension very quickly and go, you know what? Let me give you guys a few minutes to talk. We're going to head off into the kitchen right over there. Just holler. Let me know when you're ready. What I'm doing is I'm creating space, and I'm basically telling them that I'm telling them to make a decision on something. When I come back, they need to talk to their parents. They need to go back and think about it, and that's okay. I don't do high pressure sales. Or they're going to tell me that they're ready to go. He loses. And it's not a win or loss, but it's just the way that they talk about it in the business. Don't do anything. Just wait. Sometimes we waited 30 seconds. No joke. At one point, we waited 15 minutes. And that's okay.
Yep.
But they're going to come out. If they come out and they say, hey, we have a few questions, that's great. You answer those questions. And then the next tagline that you hook through is, we'd love to start some paperwork today, right? It's pretty simple. Do you feel comfortable doing that? So I'm giving them options. What I will say is this varies from some other instructors. There are instructors that talk about, like, I'm challenging you to then challenge me to do things. And there's nothing wrong with that because it aligns with their brand. Make sure that they are so 100% comfortable that when they leave here, they're thinking about their engagement session. They're thinking about their wedding. There is no doubt. They're telling all of their friends. Okay, so let me boil that back down, because that was the fire hose of information, as I've used before. The key is this. I'm going to give them very low down payment. Let's get this started. So I've moved to a proactive energy and a proactive to close. Closure is one of the hardest things that you can do, but generally speaking of a sales deal, you're not trying to pull something out of your pockets and be slick with it. So I think that's the big takeaway is it's the end of a process, not this big, you got to whack it out of the park, grand slam, home run concept.
Love it. Sorry, I was muted. I have like right now we've gone, just to recap for everybody, we've gone through, we've gotten to know. We've moved into another space. We've established that work, timeless artwork looks like and we've signed the contract. What is the next step? So now after you sign the contract, do you say, hey, do you guys want to go Netflix and chill back over there? Do you want to get the hell out of my house? Like, what is that next thing that you like transition them?
Sure. Absolutely. So what we do with the contract is Jen will go upstairs and she'll fill out a whole bunch of paperwork. I'll be talking to the client. Generally at this point, they've been, right? We conduct most of our business after our clients' business hours. So now we're like 8 o'clock at night. Generally speaking, at this point is they've had a great experience. They've gotten to know us. They're very excited. They've signed a contract. At that point, leave on a high note. So they've signed the contract. They slide the deposit across the table. Oh, we're so excited to photograph your wedding. We can't wait. Your engagement session at Franklin Field is going to be amazing. We're so excited. We're going to set up your engagement session next. We kind of take them right back out the door and right outside. We don't go back over in the other space because we want to make sure that now that you concluded the sale, everyone's happy, everyone feels good, and they're leaving on that high note. We don't give any opportunity for anything else. Jen, you have a comment?
I was gonna say our goal is to have the best first date
Yeah,
ever.
correct. Right. So you don't want that hot, like that awkward, like, like butt out hug, you know what I mean, on that first date. It was great. You had dinner, right? You got to know everybody. Everyone's at the end. You're like, would you like to do this again? They're like, absolutely, phenomenal. You know what I mean? You went Dutch on your meal. Everyone moves on. And that gives you the ground to then work from, hey, remember all these great ideas we talked about at our sales session and when you came into our house and our studio about your engagement session? Let's go do that. That's the email conversation that follows. So we kind of, once they sign on the dotted line, at that point, they're ready to go.
Awesome. And I think this was perfect timing because I think your microphone just went out. So I have a couple questions here that came in. So if you want to get just a little bit closer to this microphone, or you might have another one. You might have it. Look at all these AirPods he's bumping out. So I just want to make sure you can hear me as I'm asking these questions. Yes, you can hear me. Okay, so how has your process changed during COVID and, with dates changing and things like that? Like, what changes have you guys had to make for?
Yes. Okay. So COVID, right? So the fundamentals don't change. So what that means is basically there's an introduction period. We're then going to go into a sales piece of it.
It's all through Zoom.
Correct. But what we do is we do all
They
this
can't hear me.
through Skype, through Zoom, through some interface. But we
do it
exactly
the same. The part that does miss is we can't physically move them through a space because there is no space for them to move through, right? So we know that. But what we do is we can create that kind of feel where normally what we do is we actually sit at a table, we put our laptop up, the artwork behind us. They don't see anything else. And actually, as Jen comes around, it's normally this right here. They see kind of half a door and then they see artwork behind us, right? And then again, at that point, what we focus on is the same questions, the same getting to know you. All of that still takes place. And we'll joke, and I'll flat out tell them, be like, hey, I'm going to go get a cocktail. Why don't you go grab one? We'll come back in 15 seconds. I'll run into the kitchen. I'll grab a drink, a bottle of beer, whatever. And again, you're doing the same thing. You're just doing it virtually. And the clients that kind of want to play along, you're going to be in good shape. But the ones that don't push it. Just kind of let it go. Then what we make sure that we do is, and again, things just get a little bit different, is when we're talking about sales, we do talk about the difference of sizes of things, but I use kind of like body parts to show how big things are. And then when Jen starts to talk about albums, we talk about albums, I'll be in the chair, and then Jen will stand behind me holding those albums. Because as Jen holds it, you can see it like fills her whole torso or mine, and then brings it close as she's showing the imagery inside the album. You'll bring it up. You'll be very, very close as you go through it. But because of all these online Zoom, Skype-like platforms, what we can then do is we can share our desktop, which then brings up all of the critical information. What that does is it shows that we've mastered the technology. It's just a little bit more slick. It's just a little bit more professional instead of me trying to hold an iPad up and kind of pointing at it, right? But what I will do is just like if you work in a corporate environment, when you do these types of things, is you say, If you can open up the PDF on your screen, I'm going to share my screen, but in case that falls apart, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to tell you the page numbers or what slide I'm on as I change them. So you're always creating it where there's a backup through all of the systems. So again, the conversation, the hooks, the movements, the engagements, all of that is identical. It's just a little bit more animated as you're doing it online.
Excellent. And I would assume that the same thing would happen if you ever have to do this remotely. Like, let's say the couple's from South Dakota and you're doing a destination wedding somewhere, they're coming to Philly. So are you doing this similar thing?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So it's actually funny you mentioned this, because last year we booked 3 weddings where the client actually lives in Boston, Virginia, and I forget the third location, but their wedding was in Philadelphia, but they were located not in Philadelphia. So we actually had to do sales sessions with them virtually. And then the first time we met them was pretty much at their wedding in person. But what we try to do in those situations is for an engagement session, especially like the 2 couples in Boston, is we went to Boston. So we made sure that the engagement sessions were in Boston. It made them feel comfortable. It made them feel better. We went to dinner with them. The one couple we took their photos in the park, had dinner, and then walked back to our hotel with them through a park. So what we'll try to do is make sure that yes, the sales were virtually, but then we still try to make sure that we engage that the first photo session that we have with them is in a place where they feel comfortable, and that might be a remote location.
Excellent. Do you ever have customers that have buyer's remorse after they sign the contract at night?
Great question. That literally the way we have this set up, and you can even tell the way that we do closure, is designed to be 100% not that. That is our biggest fear, is buyer's remorse. So one of the things that we do, and I'll even joke, is like, oh, we're in so high pressure sales, and say it kind of jokingly, is that is 100% what we don't want. We're also creating scenarios for that client to back out at any point. So let's roll back in time. Our marketing materials are aligned. They've pre-authenticated themselves for the cost. There's no surprise there. They now have an hour or less over in the other room to get to know us, where if the personalities don't jive, they can pull the ripcord. We can pull the ripcord, right? We now physically get them up and move them over here. If during that time, as they stand up, they're like, I'm not feeling it, they can pull the ripcord. As they sit down in here, they go through the books. At the end of it, there's a pause before we go into, they can pull the ripcord. We're giving them tons of opportunities in order to do that, but at the same time, making sure they feel comfortable, with the idea being that when you get to the end, again, closure should be a natural conclusion to the process, not a Hail Mary pass. And if you do that, then there is no buyer's remorse. And as a big piece of that, we're setting up our next sale through our current sale. So we bring up album pages and all of that post-wedding during the sale session. Jen?
We also don't do any signing incentives.
Correct. So it's also a piece of that is what we, that's great. I will do that. Absolutely. So what Jen brought up a very good point. One of the things that we don't do is we don't do signing incentives. We don't do signing bonuses. If you sign today, you get this. We don't create a scenario where they feel in any way they're pressured to sign, because I would rather lose 100 clients and book 2 clients that are perfect than book 100 clients that are okay. Now, why do I say that? There's a very interesting statistic that came out. JB Saleh actually brought this statistic where he talks about how in a photography business, the majority of your income comes through basically the 20 to 25% repeat customers. And it's very interesting how true that really is. So as clients come through, we will make sure they feel comfortable. And we say that all of our existing clients that we continue to make money from, in a good way, because we like to work with them. They're great people. Mini sessions, family sessions. We don't really do newborns, but family lifestyle sessions, all kind of those pieces, they're clients that we've already had. So by making sure that they feel great through the whole process, I'm putting them into that repertoire where I'm going to continue to fulfill their photography needs. If they have buyer's remorse, they're not going to do that.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump back in here. I want to thank you guys so much for joining. If you do have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. Remember, this was just a way to kind of wet your whistle. This is a way for you to see, just meet the stits. I mean, we're doing the same thing with you for PhotoFest that they do in their business. We want to introduce you guys so that way you know what to expect. But if there's any questions about business, workflow, they have this down. I mean, you can see as we just went through how much they put thought into how tall the table is. I mean, that's the type of stuff that they are at this level when it comes to sales. So if you do have questions, please put them in there. I wanted to go over just a few, just some housekeeping things. I need you guys to do me a huge favor. Everybody that's still watching, please go to social.thepixelconnection.com and click on where you see Apple Podcasts. So our podcast just got launched, and as of this morning, we are in the Apple Podcast Store, Apple Podcast app. But this first 30 days is super, super important for us to get people subscribed. So if you could go in there and do that for us, that would be absolutely awesome. It basically tells Apple, hey, we're here. People want to hear this. And the first 5 episodes that we have launched are all about starting your business. So if you've stayed till the end, you've been listening to this and taking notes down because you want to make your photography business better, then you're going to love the Talking Pixels podcast. It's, we go through a different topic, and we started off with, episode 1 where we kind of introduced ourselves, but then we jumped right into it on how to start your business. I'm going to go through these because we didn't start them at the beginning. If you do have questions, please put them in the comments and we'll circle back to them. But I wanted to let you know that we do have a weekly photo contest, and this week's theme is pets. So it doesn't have to necessarily be your pet. Like, that's my new adorable puppy there. His name's George, after George Eastman Kodak. But we want to see your pets. We want to see your cats, your dogs, your llamas, whatever it is. We want to see cool pictures of pets. And just follow us on Instagram at the.pixel.connection, and then use hashtag #thepixelconnection and hashtag #mypets. It's probably the easiest way that you could win $50 to spend on photography gear this week. I also wanted to let you know about Pixel Photo Fest. I've been referencing it during this whole presentation. August 14th, 15th, and 16th, we are going to have the Stits in the house in Cleveland for a 3-day intensive. It's hands-on. It is, I just can't describe. We're going to be rubbing elbows with some of the top in the industry. You're going to be drinking beers with Travis, and you're going to be able to ask him any questions that he has about sales. If you want to talk about the creative side with Jen, how do you create all these albums, and how do you create, how did you do your website? What did you go through for rebranding? That creative side. You can sit there and you can talk to them about that. That's what's great about this conference. And for you guys, we actually have a lunch and learn code % off. So up to $95 on some of the best gear, best ways to protect your gear that have been there. I've had Think Tank for, 7, 8 years, and those bags are still, like, those are the ones that I hold on to when I kind of clear out, because the quality is just so good. And I know Eeyore actually uses the Mindshift bag, because I see it, here in the office. He has very similar to this one, so he can't speak highly enough about it as well. I also want to let you know that we are working with Sigma to raise money for local food banks, the Cleveland Food Bank. So 5% of 50 to 600, whatever that is, 5% of that sales goes directly to feed people in the Cleveland area. So please, if you've been thinking about it, now's a great time that you can help yourself and help others. Are you looking for additional help with your camera, with sales, with marketing? We do offer one-to-one, one-on-one classes. So all you have to do is just let us know that you want to sit down for a virtual one-on-one. I did this last week for a live stream customer, and we dug deep into his why. Why did he want to do this live stream? What was it going to do for his business? Cigar businesses. So, we sat down and we talked about his specific needs. It's not just come, learn about live stream, and then you're done. It is one-on-one. How can we brainstorm and do the best for your business? So we have those available as well. So I want to let you know what else is going on this week. So Wednesday, that's today, we had Travis and Jen. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Tomorrow, savings on Sigma Glass tomorrow, and it's only going to be available for the live stream. So we've gotten special permission to be able to share this on our live stream. So if you are looking at Sigma Glass, then definitely check it out tomorrow. We're going to have some special savings. Friday is the Friday Focus, where I talk about the industry. We had the R5 announcements. We learned more about that awesome camera this week. There's been all that's our winner. On Monday, we're going to be talking to Bear from Sony, where we can talk about all the different lenses that are available for the system. More and more lenses keep coming out from Sony for the Sony E-mount system, and it's probably one of the most mature systems for mirrorless full-frame cameras that is out there. On Tuesday, we're going to be talking to Sarah. She's a local photographer, about photographing that first 48, that fresh, new, and being stuck inside and still photographing your kiddos. On Wednesday, we're going to be talking about your video sucks. So what that means is, that's kind of a harsh way to say it, but photographers a lot of times think, we are photographers, we couldn't do video, our video skills are not that good. That's what we are going to present with Lumix on Wednesday, is different things that you can do as a photographer to create better video for your customers. And I just wanted to brag a little bit on Jen and Travis. As I was on their website, they have this cinematograph with the dog, and it's like, I sat there seriously just staring at their website and watching that dog look over at me for way too long. So, how can you use video? How can you use motion in your business is what we're going to be talking about on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we're going to have a light lunch with ProPhoto. So we're going to learn just a little bit more about, lighting in general. So finally, if you guys have absolutely any questions, please let us know. You can email us at sales@thepixelconnection.com, on Instagram, or on Facebook, and we're still here at the store. So if you want to give us a call, you need someone to talk to, please do that as well. So I want to thank you guys so much. I'm actually going to bring all these angles up here. Look how cool it looks. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for taking a tour of your studio and proving that you can do in-person sales even from your home. You don't have to have an expensive studio. You don't have to let that be a barrier to be successful. So thank you guys so much for joining. Where can people find you online?
So they can find us online at foxandbrazen.com. They can track Jen on Instagram at uncorkedjen. What's some of the other ones we have?
Yours.
Oh, you can track me at uncorkedtravis, which is fun. And then we do have Fox and Brazen Instagram as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you have an awesome, safe, and healthy day. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Have a good one.